Honourable questions. Question orale. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Prime Minister, 1 out of 5 Canadians is skipping meals and 1.5 million have to go to food banks just to eat. We have a government that costs 50% more in bureaucracy and a strike at the same time. What is the Prime Minister doing? He went on vacation to New York with fancy people who have a lot of money but not a lot of common sense. So when will the government and the Prime Minister get back to work? The Honourable President of the Treasury Board. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the question is, what's happening at the negotiating table? Mr. Speaker, what's happening is that we are working very hard to reach a deal that is reasonable for employees and reasonable for Canadians. We're working tirelessly to ensure that this deal will put an end to the strike. And of course, Mr. Speaker, we respect the strike, but we are working very hard at the table now. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Prime Minister, Canadians are broke and the government is broken. Here we have 1 in 5 Canadians skipping meals because they can't afford the price of food. 9 in 10 young people say they can't afford housing. No wonder the Prime Minister has doubled the rent, doubled needed mortgage payments, and doubled down payments. Crime is raging out of control on our streets, and there's the biggest federal strike in Canadian history. What's the Prime Minister's priority? Why another vacation? This time to New York to hang out with the people who have lots of money but not a lot of common sense. When will the Prime Minister and his government get back to work?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
In the Leaders of Opposition comment, I believe I heard he's asking what is happening at the table at this time, and what's happening is that we are negotiating. We are trying to find a reasonable deal for public servants that will be fair, and we are working day in and day out to get to that deal. We also respect the workers as they are striking, but we know that the best deal that we will find is at the table. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, they consider the best deal to be paying 50% more tax dollars on bureaucracy and end up with a strike regardless. The average Canadian household has to spend $1,300 more in federal tax just for bureaucracy, and they're not getting the services that they're paid for. This is on top of 40-year highs in inflation, a doubling in housing costs, and jobs that are leaving our country because the Prime Minister's gatekeepers are sending them away. So why doesn't the Prime Minister turn his plane around, get back to Ottawa, do his job, and get his government back to work?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's look at the facts, Mr. Speaker, because we have a lot of bluff and bluster from the other side, and this government has been working for Canadians since the day we formed government. And, Mr. Speaker, let's just take a look at the facts over the last year. The strongest economic recovery in the G7, 830,000 jobs created since the worst time of the pandemic. Mr. Speaker, an economic recovery that is faster than the United States. Mr. Speaker, over 700,000 people lifted out of poverty. Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to grow, lead growth into the G7. Mr. Speaker, we're here working for Canadians every day. That's our job. We're going to keep doing just that.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Wow, are they ever out of touch? Telling Canadians that they've never had it so good. Well, the 1.5 million people eating at food banks, some of them asking for help with medical assistance and dying because they're too hungry and miserable to go on, might beg to disagree with that rosy picture over there. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister expatriates our jobs to other countries. Most recently, we have Glencore, an ethically challenged company, threatening to take over one of the oldest resource companies in Canadian history, Teck Resources. Will the government protect the thousands of jobs at stake and our minerals by blocking this takeover?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Certainly, critical minerals is an enormously high priority for this government. It represents a generational economic opportunity for Canada. At this point, there is no formal offer on the table, but certainly as a British Columbian who lives in Vancouver, where Teck is headquartered, I am very proud of the fact that it does its corporate offices in Vancouver, its research and development is done in British Columbia. It is an important member of the Canadian business community, and we certainly are in touch with them on an ongoing basis.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, what we need to do is bring home more control over our resources into the hands of Canadians rather than shipping our jobs overseas as the Prime Minister has been doing now for 8 years. We could do that by getting rid of the gatekeepers to quickly build natural gas liquefaction facilities, getting rid of the gatekeepers so that we can have the tidal power developed clean, green in Atlantic Canada, and of course getting rid of the gatekeepers to build more hydroelectric dams au Quebec, and finally, by blocking this foreign takeover by an unethical overseas company, will the Prime Minister finally bring it home for Canada and block this takeover?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
I'm not sure where the honourable member has been sitting for the past few weeks, perhaps behind a gate, because if you actually look at the work that has been done, the approval of a recent LNG project, 2 critical minerals mines, a major port expansion, and just yesterday TD put out a report that said Canada is the second best place in the world to invest in terms of the green economy, largely as a result of the investments we've made in the budget. I would encourage my honourable friend to do his homework.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, who is telling the truth? On Tuesday, the 2019 Liberal campaign director, Jeremy Broadhurst, said that CSIS informed him of foreign interference in the riding of Don Valley North and that he informed the Prime Minister on September 29, 2019. Yet the Prime Minister said in this House in November 2022 that he was never told anything about federal candidates receiving money from China. Who is telling the truth, Mr. Broadhurst or the Prime Minister? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister was very clear in the House, and since we formed a government, that foreign interference in our democratic institutions is a serious matter. Attempts by a number of countries to interfere in our democracy are increasing, and that's why our government has taken very concrete measures, effective measures, to counter that interference. We are ready to go even further. We look forward to recommendations from Mr. Johnston, and we will continue to ensure that democratic institutions are protected. The Honourable Member from La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, on September 29, 2019, there were a few hours left to change the candidate. The Prime Minister could have acted, but he didn't want to risk giving his political opponents an advantage. So the Prime Minister turned a blind eye, looked the other way, and said that no one informed him of anything. This Prime Minister is inventing an alternate reality and now wants us to trust his special rapporteur, appointed by him and for him, on the subject of Chinese interference. When will there be a public and independent commission of inquiry? The Honourable Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, we believe that Canadians have reason to believe in the work of Mr. Johnston, in his service to Canada in a number of roles, in his integrity. He will be transparent in his work as rapporteur, special rapporteur, who is independent, and he will give guidance to the government as to the next steps to reassure Canadians that our democratic institutions are truly protected. We look forward to working with Mr. Johnston and to sharing his recommendations with all Canadians. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is missing in action when it comes to fighting record grocery store profits. The Prime Minister is MIA when it comes to fighting the housing crisis. He is MIA when it comes to fighting the climate crisis. The Prime Minister has been MIA for 2 years, while his employees... It's just that we are getting close to something we can't say in the House when it comes to whether someone is here or not. I want the honourable member to restart his question, perhaps with a little bit more precision. Thank you very much. The honourable member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is not doing anything to fight the record grocery store profits. The Prime Minister is doing nothing to fight the housing crisis. The Prime Minister is doing nothing to fight the climate crisis. The Prime Minister has done nothing for 2 years, while public servants have just been calling for wages that keep up with inflation. When will the Prime Minister show up to work, respect public servants, and give his minister a mandate to resolve the issue? The Honourable President of the Treasury Board. Mr. Speaker, as the Minister responsible for negotiations, here's another update for Canadians who are listening and employees. We are at the table today to try to find creative solutions that can help us move forward on this decision to reach a deal. The government, however, will not give in to unaffordable demands that would affect the opportunity to provide services to Canadians. Mr. Speaker, we are working tirelessly to reach a deal, and we will do so as soon as possible.
Member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, most of the public service workers on strike are women, some of them trying to raise their families on $40,000 a year. And where's the Prime Minister? In New York, announcing funding for international women's organizations while cutting $150 million from women.
And I know I'm order for a second. I'll back it up. We are getting into a place where we know something's happening, but we can't really say it here on the floor of the chamber, whether somebody's here or not. So we just need to be careful and judicious in the words that we're using in our question. So I'll go back to the honourable member for Winnipeg Centre, maybe to back up and restart her question and try to stay away from maybe who's here or who's not here.
Mr. Speaker, most of the public service workers on strike are women, some of them trying to raise their family on $40,000 a year. And what is the Prime Minister doing? Announcing funding for international organizations while cutting $150 million from women's shelters here in Canada and refusing to reach a fair agreement with PSAC workers. He has to support women internationally and here at home. He must do both. Does he really think that he's fooling Canadians with his fake feminism?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government has always been there for women and will continue to be there for women. When the pandemic struck, Mr. Speaker, we saw what was happening. We knew that grassroots organizations had to keep their doors open. We responded with $300 million in emergency funding, Mr. Speaker. That work continues with the action plan to end gender-based violence, with $500 million on the table. I am negotiating with provinces and territories right now to get this done. We have been there for women. We will always be there for women.
Bravo.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
Speaker, the Prime Minister spent $21 billion more on public services that brought Canadians the biggest federal strike in Canadian history. There are more than 150,000 people blocking streets, they're blocking buildings, and they're now blocking critical infrastructure. Canadians trying to get a passport, call immigration, or talk to anyone at CRA can't do it because of this government's incompetence. He paid $21 billion to cause this strike. He took off on a private jet to lecture the world about climate change with the fancy people in New York. Will somebody kindly tell us how much it will cost for Canadians for him to end this strike?
The Honourable Minister of Families.
In difference with the Conservative members of Parliament, on this side we actually respect workers and we respect their rights. We are at the negotiating table right now to ensure that we get a fair deal for Canadian taxpayers as well as for the hard-working public servants who have been there for Canadians, particularly in their moment of need, particularly during the worst economic and health crisis that we have seen in a generation. Mr. Speaker, we are going to get a good agreement that is going to support our workers as well as Canadian taxpayers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, nobody is disputing the hard work of the public service. They are simply flabbergasted by the incompetence of this Prime Minister and this government.
Right.
He grew the public service by 53%. He hired his friends to do the work, and he still can't assure Canadians that they can get through to CRA or even get a passport in this country. He's on vacation again, far away from this strike. When will he and his government get back to work?
That's right.
The Honourable Minister of Families.
I think what's particularly concerning about what the member opposite is saying is that the public service grew at a time when Canadians were in their darkest hour. Mr. Speaker, we were talking about a once-in-a-generation pandemic. We supported, and those same public servants supported 8.5 million Canadians to access the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. Those same public service supported Canadians to receive the Canada Emergency Business Accounts support. Mr. Speaker, they were there in Canada's time of need. We believe in collective bargaining. We believe in the right to strike, and we believe and we will get a good deal for the public servants and for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
While this Prime Minister jet sets to New York trying to up his phony celebrity profile, he leaves behind a Canada that feels more and more broken.
He didn't say he was earning.
Okay. The rule is specific, though, of whether a member is in the House or not out of the House. But you can't say indirectly what you can't say directly in the House either. So we do have to be judicious in how we ask the questions and try to stick to the rules of the House of Commons. So I will let the honourable member for Calgary Forest Lawn continue with his question.
The Prime Minister jet set to New York trying to up his phony celebrity profile while leaving behind a Canada that feels more and more broken. Only this guy could blow up the public service by 50%, costing an extra $21 billion and causing the biggest strike in Canadian history. A special kind of incompetence only this Prime Minister could accomplish. And after spending all that money, Canadians ended up getting longer lineups, bigger backlogs, and slower services. A job well failed. After 8 years of this costly coalition, when will this Prime Minister get out of his empire state of mind and get back to work?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, you know, what's interesting about the other side is we've said time and time again that we respect collective bargaining. We're going to get a good deal for Canadians. We're going to get a good deal for the federal public service. But what the Conservatives don't want to talk about, Mr. Speaker, is all the stuff that they're going to vote against in the Budget Implementation Act. They're going to vote against a new tax credit to boost investment for critical mineral production. They're going to vote against tradespeople getting more money for their tools deduction. They're going to vote against getting good resource deals approved faster. Mr. Speaker, they're going to vote against economic development. We're going to keep working for Canadians.
Honourable member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
Those empty words aren't going to fill the empty stomachs of Canadians as 1 in 5 continue to skip meals. And while the Prime Minister drops in on the Big Apple, Canadians can't afford many. This Prime Minister created a socialist paradise for its liberal insiders and elites, and his costly coalition NDP partner support all of this. They support the carbon tax scam that takes more from Canadians than what they get back in these phony rebates, making the cost of gas, groceries, and home heating more expensive. When will this team tax to the max, scrap the scam, and get back to work?
The Honourable Minister of Families.
Mr. Speaker, it's a bit hard to take the Conservatives at face value when they talk about Canadians in poverty, because when the Conservative government came into power in 2006, they were at 17th when it came to the OECD when it comes to child poverty rankings. By the time they left office 9 years later, they had fallen to 24th, Mr. Speaker. They had actually done nothing to alleviate people who were living in poverty. But you know what, Mr. Speaker, we came into office in 2015. We've helped 450,000 children get out of poverty. We've helped 2.7 million Canadians get out of poverty. Mr. Speaker, we're going to keep being there for Canadians, unlike the members opposite. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, currently there's someone in New York that there's a Canadian everybody knows who is having a great time. But here in Canada, there are millions of Canadians who are struggling. It's a serious matter. For 8 years, this government has increased public service spending by 50%, and today we have a general strike. Mr. Speaker, it's incredible. $20 billion more and a strike. Only the Liberals and this Prime Minister could do that. Why are the Liberals unable to resolve a problem affecting all Canadians? The Honourable Minister of Tourism. Mr. Speaker, we will continue at the negotiating table with the public service, and we will reach a deal that makes sense for Canadians. But, Mr. Speaker, what the Conservatives don't want to discuss is the fact that Canada is leading growth within the G7. We have 870,000 more jobs than at the worst part of the pandemic. We have a labour participation rate of Canadian women of 85%, Mr. Speaker. He doesn't want to talk about employed women or about the economy. We will do so, and we will grow Canada. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. $20 billion more in spending. Let's talk about jobs. 150,000 striking federal workers now. That's the reality. But I'll try to be fair. I want to recognize something. Over 8 years, they've been consistent when it comes to ethics. You'll remember the SNC-Lavalin scandal, the We Charity, conflicts of interest with the Trudeau Foundation. When will the Prime Minister get to work for all Canadians rather than for his pals? The Honourable Minister of Tourism. Mr. Speaker, you've seen so much energy to talk about everything that the Conservatives want us to do for Canadians. But, Mr. Speaker, let's have a look at what the Conservatives will be opposing in the budget. They'll be voting against a tax credit to stimulate investment in critical minerals. They'll be voting against workers and tax deductions. They'll be voting against dental care for Canadians. It's shameful, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for La Pointe-de-l'Île. Mr. Speaker, the government's Bill C-13 recognizes that French is under threat in Quebec. Yet yesterday, the Liberals tabled an action plan in which Quebec's share is $140 million each year for the promotion of English. $700 million over 5 years for English in Quebec and zero for French. Crumbs. So Quebecers are asking themselves today, does the federal government have numbers proving that English is threatened in Quebec? If not, why are the Liberals investing? Inaudible. The Honourable Minister of Official Languages. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yesterday was a historic day for official languages in this country, with an action plan, an historic investment of $4.1 billion to support our official language minority communities and reverse the decline in French throughout the country, including in Quebec. Mr. Speaker, the funding announced yesterday, well, we're not funding English in Quebec. We're funding the vitality of English-speaking communities in Quebec, along with French, and we are supporting jobs. Mr. Speaker, once again, yesterday was a good day. The Honourable Member for La Pointe-de-l'Île. Quite the logic there. I know the reaction of the government of Quebec was this: I have not yet seen in the plan any measures that are consistent with the Prime Minister's statement that French in Quebec is threatened. Mr. Speaker, in other words, there is nothing in there for French in Quebec, but there is $700 million for English. So if it's French that is threatened in Quebec and not English, why don't those $700 million go to French at work, promoting French? Yes. The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, yesterday we announced an action plan that is historic, $4.1 billion, once again, to protect and promote our official language minority communities, to reverse the decline in French in Quebec and everywhere in Canada. We're not funding English in Quebec. On the contrary, we're supporting the vitality of English-speaking communities. For example, with employment services and French as a second language programs will always be there to support our communities, to do everything to reverse the decline in French. Thank you.
L'honorable député de Longueuil.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals recognize that French is under threat in Quebec. It's even in Bill C-13. That's great. But they haven't changed a single comma in the federal strategy to promote English in Quebec. Despite their fine words, their action plan for official languages to 2028 is crumbs for French in Quebec and $700 million for English. What will have the most impact, do you think? Their rhetoric or $700 million invested directly in the Anglicization of Quebec? Order, order. The Honourable Minister for Official Languages. Mr. Speaker, it's quite the contrary. The investment we're making in official languages, we're doing everything we can to protect and promote French throughout the country, including in Quebec, but also to support our official language minority communities. Yesterday, the plan we unveiled, we had conversations with thousands of Canadians throughout the country. They talked about their priorities: Francophone immigration, investments in continuing education, supporting organizations on the ground, and ensuring that the government is showing leadership. And that's exactly what we're doing with the bill and our action plan. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Prime Minister, many Canadians cannot afford a place to live. The Liberals have committed $90 billion on housing, and what do they have to show for it? A record of unprecedented mismanagement and ineffective governance. Mortgages and rent have doubled. It now costs an average of $2,500 a month to rent one room in a townhouse. And where is the Prime Minister during the crisis? He'd rather be gallivanting to New York City. I can't wait to see the outrageous bill he'll foist on struggling Canadians for this junket. Mr. Speaker, when will the Prime Minister and his government get serious and get back to work?
You need to remind each other again, one of us again, to not say whether someone's here or not. The Honourable Minister of Housing.
Mr. Speaker, we have been working for Canadian renters, and we've been putting in place groundbreaking programs like the Canada Housing Benefit, which the party opposite voted against. And not only that, when we proposed the top-up to the Canada Housing Benefit to help vulnerable renters at this difficult period, what did the party opposite do? Not only did they vote against this really badly needed help, they played procedural games, Mr. Speaker, in this House to delay passage of much needed support. So Canadians can see through their rhetoric. They can come here and talk about supports for rent, but when it comes time to actually do the work, they're MIA.
The Honourable Member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
After 8 years as Prime Minister, Canadians cannot afford a home of their own. $2,500 a month to rent for a couple to rent a room in a townhouse. Not the townhouse, just a room. Mortgage payments have doubled. Construction of new housing is actually in decline. Their $90 billion transformational housing scheme is making the situation worse. And of course, the Prime Minister would rather be hobnobbing with his rich friends and other places. But while Canadians are struggling and can't afford a house, we want to know when this government's going to get back to work and work for Canadians.
Here, here.
Honourable Minister of Housing.
Get along really well with my critic. He said recently that he's looking for literature to figure out how to build housing policy. Well, I'm happy to share our national housing strategy, Mr. Speaker. Not only that, I'm actually also happy to share with him the new groundbreaking Housing Accelerator Fund, which is about adding more housing supply, working with municipalities to make sure that we unlock more housing supply, including affordable housing, including purposely built rentals, including tying federal dollars of infrastructure to housing, while also making sure that we're taking care of the most vulnerable. In every aspect of those elements, Mr. Speaker, they voted against.
The Honourable Member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Well, I got news for the minister. I've read his national housing plan, and it's not worked. It's making the situation worse. And so every member on this side of the House can be very proud of the fact that we didn't write a blank check for Liberal failures and we voted against it. The housing minister doesn't seem to even understand that we're in a housing crisis. Their expensive schemes are making the situation worse and worse and worse. So my question is simple. When will this government learn that in a housing supply crisis, photo ops and talking points simply don't get more homes built?
The Honourable Minister of Housing.
Conservative gatekeepers simply aren't serious when it comes to housing. when his leader was housing minister, he did nothing to help affordable housing opportunities. Now the Conservative position on housing is to do nothing, cut funding, and magically hope that things will get better. It's the same kind of thinking that underpinned his leader's call for the embrace of cryptocurrency to deal with inflation. That is not a serious plan, Mr. Speaker. Our national housing strategy is serious and is getting help to Canadians.
The honourable member for Vancouver East.
In committee, we found out that the former chief of staff to the past Minister of Defense provided a senator an altered official government document to bring Afghans to safety. And we found out that minister was copied on all communications. Wow. Shockingly, the minister said he was too busy at the time to check his personal government email account. Almost 2 years later, he says he still has not checked. How is this even possible? And does the Prime Minister really think this is acceptable? No.
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, during the evacuation of Kabul, there was an absolute crisis situation. The response of the Government of Canada during that time saved thousands of lives. I'm pleased to share with members of this House that today there are more than 30,000 vulnerable Afghan refugees who have received a second lease on life. When it comes to the issuance of facilitation letters, Mr. Speaker, we use those to move people through Taliban checkpoints. They were not intended for people to arrive in Canada. When we became aware of the use of inauthentic letters, we shared them with law enforcement to conduct an independent investigation. It was the responsible thing to do.
The honourable member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
Mr. Speaker, tomorrow is the National Day of Mourning, a day when we remember those workers who have been killed or injured on the job. Workers like Troy Pearson and Charlie Craig, who were killed when the tugboat Inchinika sank near Kitimat. It's been a month and a half since the Transportation Safety Board issued 4 recommendations to prevent similar deaths. And every single day, workers board vessels just like the Inchinika up and down our coast. So will this minister stand in this House and commit to finally implementing all 4 recommendations?
Honourable Minister of Transportation.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for his question, but also his constant advocacy on making sure that we increase the level of safety in our transportation industry. I met recently with Ms. Craig. I expressed our government's condolences to her for the loss of life, and I committed to her. I looked her in the eye, Mr. Speaker, and I told her we are going to take action based on the recommendations that the Transportation Safety Board has recommended. We are currently examining our options, Mr. Speaker, but we will take actions because one loss of life is too many. Thank you.
L'honorable député de Lac Saint-Louis.
Canadians deserve to have access to a fair and efficient passenger airline sector and to travel with relative ease and without major inconvenience and disruption. Many travelers, however, have experienced delayed and canceled flights over the past year. They deserve to be compensated accordingly. Can the Minister of Transport inform this House on actions our government has taken to ensure that air travelers' rights are respected and protected?
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for his question and his leadership. Last year, we saw significant disruptions in the air sector as it was recovering from COVID. We promised Canadians that we will further protect their passengers' rights, and this week, Mr. Speaker, we delivered on that promise. We are reversing the onus on airlines to make sure that compensation will be mandatory. We are putting a new standard of service, and we are putting new rules for delayed and lost luggage. Plus, Mr. Speaker, we're simplifying the complaint process at the CTA. Mr. Speaker, protections for passengers in Canada will be the toughest in the world.
Hear, hear. L'honorable député de Mégantic-l'Érable.
The honourable member for Mégantic-l'Érable. After 8 years of this Liberal Prime Minister, despite a series of troubling revelations, this Prime Minister is using many different kinds of subterfuge to avoid answering questions. This week, he has continued to pretend that he has no affiliation with the Trudeau Foundation, and yet that foundation held meetings at the PM's office building. The so-called protector of our elections that he appointed was CEO of the Trudeau Foundation, and the person that he appointed to decide if we need a public inquiry was also a member of the board of that foundation. Why doesn't this PM get back to work and tell people the truth? Is he missing? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And let's be very clear on the issue. The member knows full well that the Prime Minister has had no direct or indirect communications with the Foundation over the past 10 years.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, after 8 years, we know what this Prime Minister likes. Traveling around on a private jet, galas with New York high society, and people who don't really know what's going on in Canada, but the situation is serious. The Trudeau Foundation, through the brother of the Prime Minister, received $140,000 from the Beijing regime. This morning at committee, after various questions, the Minister of Public Safety was unable to deny the influence of the Beijing regime on the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister will be shortly running out of jet fuel if he keeps denying the evidence. When will he finally face reality and get back to work?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, once again, I would reinforce, to be perfectly clear, the Prime Minister has no direct or indirect communications with the Trudeau Foundation, and that has been the case now for over 10 years.
The Honourable Member for Regina, Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, there's an old saying, you can't win if you don't try. In order for this Liberal government to resolve the Peace Act strike, rescue hundreds of Canadians stranded in Sudan, or answer basic questions of accountability about the Trudeau Foundation, this Prime Minister has to at least try. But I don't think the Prime Minister is trying too hard to solve these problems if he's hobnobbing with celebrities in New York City. Mr. Speaker, when is this Prime Minister going to get back to work and resolve these?
I know, but we are running against the line. We continue to run against the line. So please, now who's going to the honourable member, the honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Speaker, I just want to set the record straight. It's important that Canadians know that consular services helping on the crisis of Sudan right now are 24/7. Their strike is not affecting these services, as of course there's 130 people right now at Global Affairs helping Canadians stranded in Sudan, and we'll work until every single one of them are back. Thank you.
That's right, ma'am.
The honourable member for Red Deer Lacombe.
The Prime Minister would have us believe that a wall exists between himself and the foundation that bears his family name, yet we know that the Prime Minister held a meeting with the Trudeau Foundation in his office. The Prime Minister's name is still listed as a member of the foundation. His appointed election watchdog was the president and CEO of the Trudeau Foundation, and his special rapporteur was a Trudeau Foundation board member until a few weeks ago. With walls like this, Mr. Speaker, what's holding up the roof of his New York hotel room?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the member knows full well that the foundation actually met with public servants. The Prime Minister did not have a meeting that has been suggested by the member. He knows that.
The Honourable Member for Thérèse de Blainville. Mr. Speaker, it's been 8 days already since the beginning of the public service strike, and we're still waiting for the Prime Minister to get involved. The union formally called upon him to join the negotiations. They've invited him, but the Prime Minister is turning his back. Mr. Speaker, 8 days is abnormally long for a labor conflict of this scope. The Prime Minister knows that services can't be offered to people if 155,000 public servants are missing. When will he do something instead of further extending this labor conflict? The Honourable President of the Treasury Board. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. These public servants provide important services to Canadians, and this government appreciates their service. For 3 weeks now, we've been in mediation with the Public Service Alliance to find an agreement that is fair for workers and for Canadians. We have a good agreement on the table. And we must also ensure that we do not disturb the services we offer to Canadians. We will manage it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the Border Services Agency seems to have just woken up to what's happening in Sudan. Yesterday, Ottawa decided to stop sending asylum seekers back to that country where their lives are in danger. You might say better late than never, Mr. Speaker, but when you're talking about human life, it would be better to say the sooner the better. Ottawa should immediately have responded from a humanitarian perspective. Sudan has been in chaos since April 15th, and only yesterday have they stopped sending people back, and this morning a first Canadian plane started evacuating nationals. Did this government learn nothing from the Afghanistan fiasco? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, as you know, evacuating Canadian nationals from Sudan is our absolute priority. A few days ago, the UN Secretary General said that Sudan was one of the most dangerous places in the world right now. So this is a volatile and challenging context. 200 Canadians have been evacuated, 2 airplanes have left Sudan, and the objective is to help all Canadians who have raised their hand and are waiting for help. That's currently around 800 people. We are in contact with all of those people. Some want to leave by air, others by land, and we will be there to speak with the various countries around Sudan in order to negotiate the evacuation of those people.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Prime Minister, violent crime is up 32%, gang-related killings up 92%. Shocking. Yet this Prime Minister and his Attorney General continue to ignore the demands of police chiefs begging for bail reform in this country. After months of empty talks and no action, our communities feel less safe as repeat violent offenders are continuously being released. And what is the Prime Minister doing about it? He'd rather hang out with his liberal elites in New York City. When will he and his government finally get back to work?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians have a right to feel safe, and they have a right to be safe. And that's precisely why, Mr. Speaker, working with the provinces and territories, with provincial attorney and territorial attorneys general, we are proposing to amend parts of the criminal code to strengthen the bail regime and work with the provinces so that they can also better administer the bail regime with adequate resources. Mr. Speaker, we all have to work on this problem together. It is complex given the structure of Canadian federalism and the assignment of responsibilities, and we are doing just that.
Excellent.
Let me see. The Honourable Member for Sandwich Gulf Islands.
Mr. Speaker, just in time for Earth Day, this government approved a devastating nature-killing project, massively expanding the Port of Vancouver at Roberts Bank. It's also a job-killing project because the head of the Longshoremen Dock Workers Union says it will be devastating. But wait, I'm going to anticipate the minister's answer and save him some time. He's going to tell us there's 370 legally binding conditions. Here's my favorite, 14.7.1. The construction cranes will be painted in a color that matches the nature they are destroying. How does he make this match up to the COP15 commitments to protect nature? Shame!
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, as I announced in the House of Commons here last week, the Minister for Natural Resources and I informed Canadians that we've declared the Roberts Bank terminal expansion is in the national interest. We have obligated the port with 370 conditions. I know the member opposite has read the entire number of conditions, how strict they are and how focused they are on ensuring that we protect the environment. Mr. Speaker, we've committed to Canadians that the best way to develop and grow our economy is having an environmental plan. We're showing Canadians how the economy and the environment go hand in hand.
Oh, you're on fire.
All I'm saying, help me help you. The Honourable Member for Kamloops, Thompson Caribou.
32% the increase in violent crime, 92% the increase in gangland slangs. Police and premiers begging for bail reform. Where would the Prime Minister rather be? Not in Kamloops looking at boarded windows from break-and-enters. Not in Vancouver seeing failed Liberal bail policies. And not in Toronto where broken bail policies have led to crime. When will this Prime Minister get back to work on bail so that Canadians can feel safe rather than jet-setting?
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Speaker, as I've already said to the House on numerous occasions, we're working with the provincial and territorial attorneys general on bail reform. I've committed to doing that and tabling it in this House before the end of this session. And Mr. Speaker, we are on track to do that. While I'm up, Mr. Speaker, let me tell the honourable members across the way and in this House and Canadians across Canada that yesterday we tabled in the Senate our government's response to fixing the sexual offenders registry, parts of which had been struck down by the Supreme Court of Canada. We have, Mr. Speaker, created a presumption in favor of registration, as well as other measures to strengthen the sexual offenders registry.
The honourable member for Montmagny-Lille, Kamouraska-Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, since this Prime Minister came to power, violent crime increased by 32%, and gang-related crimes skyrocketed by 92%. Sexual offenders can live out their sentence from the comfort of their home, watching Netflix. We are asking for it. Police forces are asking for it. We want more severe laws so that criminals go behind bars and don't just spend time in their living room. Mr. Speaker, instead of strutting around, jet-setting, hobnobbing everywhere in the world, Mr. Speaker, including everywhere in the world, including in the Big Apple, will the Prime Minister get back to work and fix this problem once and for all? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, as I have said several times, serious crimes deserve serious consequences, and our government will act on several different fronts to ensure that victims of sexual assault are treated with dignity and respect. Yesterday, in the Senate, Mr. Speaker, I tabled Bill S-12 to fix the sexual offenders registry. This legislation will also give more power to victims, and I hope that all parties in this House will support that bill. Mr. Speaker, that comes in addition to other measures. For example, Bill C-3 and C-51 in order to protect victims of sexual assault. The honourable member for Saint-Léonard-Saint-Michel. Mr. Speaker, our government has worked very hard to enable Canadians to have a more healthy lifestyle. We have created significant initiatives, such as updating the Canada Food Guide, new nutritional labeling standards, and investing $10 million in Budget 2023 to encourage people to adopt a more active lifestyle. Can the Minister of Health tell us about what new measures might be added to the Canada Healthy Eating Strategy? The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I'd like to thank my colleague for Saint-Léonard-Saint-Michel for her question and her leadership, as well as her insistence on protecting people's health. That is why we are so proud of her Bill C-252, which will protect children from the negative effects of food and beverage advertising. We are bringing in initiatives to improve food labeling and in order to enable people to make better food choices. And that's why Budget 2023 includes $10 million over 2 years, and to support organizations like Participaction. Thank you.
They will definitely be allowed to enter Canada with this letter, is what a senator's office told people when distributing hundreds of unauthorized travel documents. Yet the Minister of Defense said he didn't know this was happening because he, quote, wasn't reading his emails. These actions put lives in danger and vaporized any illusion of equity in Canada's grossly inadequate evacuation of Afghanistan, and none of the people involved in the scandal have faced any consequence. Is the government comfortable sending a message that the system is so broken that the only way to help people during crisis is for Canadian politicians to issue fake travel documents?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, as I've indicated earlier today, the crisis situation during the evacuation of Kabul presented extraordinary challenges. Despite those challenges, thousands of people were able to escape and their lives were saved. I'm so pleased to share that there are more than 30,000 Afghan refugees living in Canada today as a result of this initiative. These are people I have met. They are living in our communities. I happened to meet some in the honourable member who posed the questions community during one of my recent visits to Calgary. We're going to continue to do what we can to protect the integrity of the system, including the decision that we made previously to refer the use of inauthentic letters to law enforcement. It was the right thing to do. We're going to continue to be a welcoming country and protect the integrity of Canada's immigration system.
The honourable member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Mr. Speaker, every day I'm receiving calls at my office from people that are struggling with the high cost of living that this Liberal government has caused. Seniors who are losing their homes or having to go back to work. People who are skipping meals because they can't afford to eat and heat. Other people who can't find affordable housing. And what's the Prime Minister's response? Wants to jet set with the rich and famous while Canadians struggle. When will this government get serious and get back to work?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism, Associate Minister of Finance.
Speaker, we are working every day on behalf of Canadians, and I hope that the Conservatives will have a change of heart from their normal approach, which is to vote against measures designed to help Canadians, like, for example, taking the pinch out of inflation, or perhaps making sure that there's $196 billion in our healthcare system to stabilize it for the next generation, or, heaven forbid, Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives actually lean in to grow the economy. I know it's hard because after 10 years when they were in office, we had no economic growth. We're on that track to grow the economy and to deliver jobs to Canadians. That's our job. We're going to continue doing it.
Honourable Member for Dauphin, Swan River, Neepawa.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are struggling. The carbon tax is going up, which means the cost of gas is going up. The cost of groceries is going up. And the cost of home heating is going up. 1 in 5 Canadians are now skipping meals, and Canadians can't afford a place to live because rent has doubled under this Prime Minister. But Prime Minister doesn't care. Private jets and expensive hotel rooms won't get the job done. When will this Prime Minister and his government get back to work?
A great question.
The Honourable Minister of Families.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's be very clear. Since the day we took office in 2015, we have been there to support Canadians. We have put in place the Canada Child Benefit, which helps 9 out of 10 Canadian families, has lifted 435,000 children out of poverty. Most recently have brought forward the Canada Dental Benefit, which so far 250,000 children now have been able to access the dentist. When it comes to childcare, Mr. Speaker, something the Leader of the Opposition calls a slush fund has helped thousands of Canadians, families across this country save thousands of dollars this year. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to climate change, we've put in place the Climate Action Incentive. We are there for Canadians every single step of the way. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Skyview.
Mr. Speaker, earlier this year, our government announced 2 major initiatives in Alberta and Saskatchewan that support Canada's commitment to investing in renewable energy and achieving the goal of net zero emissions by 2050. Can the Minister of Public Service and Procurement please share the details of these investments and how this furthers the government's goals on greening initiatives?
Sure.
Thank the member for Calgary Skyview for this important question. Recently, we announced agreements with Alberta and Saskatchewan energy providers to power federal buildings in their provinces with 100% green energy. This will help reduce emissions by about 166 kilotons of carbon dioxide equivalent, which is equal to the annual GHG emissions of more than 50,000 gas-powered vehicles. We're fighting climate change and greening government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
Canadians in Sudan need our help right now. Our men and women in the armed forces are eager to help, but the minister put them on the sidelines at a critical time. When the government delayed deployment, there were reports that they were while the government delayed deployment, there were reports that they are now charging one Canadian family evacuated by the UK $10,000 for their flight home. Can the Canadian government explain why they acted so slowly to send our armed forces, and why did they charge Canadians thousands of dollars for trying to get home?
L'Honorable Ministre des Affaires étrangères.
Speaker, since the beginning of this crisis, we've been at it. 130 people at Global Affairs Canada have been reaching to every single Canadian that have been registered online on the Global Affairs website. 800 Canadians have raised their hand for support. 200 Canadians have left, and we will continue to help. This morning, 2 Canadian planes left Sudan. They're on their way to a safe third country. We also made sure that we were participating in international cooperation efforts since day one. Canadians have left Sudan. Thank you.
Excellent. And that's all the time for question period today.
I think the honourable member for Abitibi, Timiskaming, has
Point of order. Yes, there was a consultation among the parties, and if you seek it, you shall find that there is unanimous consent with regard to the following motion, that this House requires that the CRTC act immediately in order to ensure that all responders that must answer 911 calls can answer quickly, effectively, and clearly in French. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All those opposed, please say nay. All right, we have heard the motion, and so all of those who are opposed, please say nay. Motion has been adopted.
It being Thursday, I'll recognize the opposition, the Honourable Opposition House Leader for the usual question. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I would just ask the government if they could update the House as to the business for the rest of the week and for the next week ahead.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And tomorrow we will resume second reading debate for Bill C-42 regarding the Canada Business Corporation Act. On Monday, we will continue to debate on Bill C-47, the Budget Implementation Act. Excellent. On Wednesday, we will commence report stage debate of Bill S-5, the Environmental Protection Act. For Tuesday and Thursday will both be opposition days.